G'day you beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a hero guide for Wukong, the Monkey King. We're going to go over his stats, his scaling, his abilities, and my first build for him, which is a build I use in offlane. It is a dedicated carry build, so it's all damage, attack speed, and lifesteal. If you go on to find this video useful in any way, shape or form, please smash the like button, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and subscribe for more Paragon content. With that said, let's get started. Alright, so Wukong is a melee order corruption hero. He is a marauder, attacker, elusive, sieger, zoner. He has 10 basic attack power, which is definitely true, a 3 for ability attack power, a 2 for durability, and a 7 for mobility. Okay, looking at his actual stats, he starts off with 526.9 health. He gains 71.1 per level to end up at 1522.3. Now this is a bit different compared to most. He gets nearly as much as a fighter per level, and he starts off on a weird note at 526.9. He's got a decent amount of health at end level. Everything else is pretty mediocre for other people's standards, but he doesn't really need much in this regard. His health regen starts at 2 and ends up at 6.2, which is fine. He doesn't really use mana, so his mana starts at 200 and ends up at 7.4, which I don't care about. His mana regen ends up at 2, and his basic armor ends up at 31.5, and his ability armor ends up at 30.5 like every other hero. Taking a look at his basic attack, which is called Rijingu Bang, which is actually the name of the Monkey King's staff. It's a melee basic attack dealing basic attack damage. Has a basic attack damage starting off at 61, which is great. It's a huge damage to start off at. He gets 1.5 per level, which is also great. And he has a power scaling of 0.9. He actually ends up in this regard doing a lot more damage than anyone else at the start of the game, and it is a very slow attack though, so he's very hungry for attack speed, and his clones are in the same regard very hungry for attack speed. This amount of damage in the early game is what makes him able to jungle, despite what people might tell you. He has got the power there to actually jungle, provided you have a Siphoner. Next up we have Control Aggression, which is definitely what I would recommend starting with and trying to upgrade it as soon as possible. It has an active which toggles Wukong's offensive and evasive stance, okay, which we'll get onto a little bit later. The passive, with his golden eye, when his golden eye flames, I believe that should be, there is a 25% chance that Wukong will spot a minion with a spirit that grants additional bonuses when slain. Now this actually means that of all the minions that are spotted on the map, 25% of them will be marked. When you're in the offensive stance, the marked minions grant bonus CXP. When you're in the evasive stance, the marked minions will grant you health. So the cooldown is 1 second. The CXP bonus starts at 40, ends up at 100, which is great. That's why you want to level it up really quick. And the health regained starts at 40 and ends up at 100 as well. This is the ability that allows him to farm really well. It's what sort of helps him off in the offlane. You can start in the offlane, allowing you to get more levels quickly. You may not get much CXP at the start of the game, but once the laning phase ends and you move on, you will be getting so much more XP that you'll easily catch up to everyone else. The next ability I would recommend taking is Cloudwalker. Wukong can jump a second time with a cooldown, so that's a free extra jump, and when you are in offensive stance, the jump ends in a 300 radius slam that deals ability damage and applies a movement speed slow for 2 seconds. When you're in evasive stance, the jump grants air walking and a movement speed bonus for 1 second. So air walking, once you end your second jump, you will then be able to run for a certain distance with a movement speed bonus that I believe is 250. So the ability damage on the offensive version starts at 60, ends up at 180, has a power scaling of 0.4, meaning you'll get an extra 40 damage per 100 power. As I said, it costs no mana, has a cooldown starting at 14 seconds, ending at 8 seconds, and the movement speed slow that is applied on the offensive version starts at 200 and ends up at 350. So it's a pretty decent slow. I haven't really used it too much in the offensive variation. I tend to use it more as the evasive stance, and it is amazing. It allows you to get out of so many sticky situations, especially if you're in off lane. There will be many, and this will become your best friend. It allows you to jump up to steal gold buffs. You can, say you're pushing the off lane tier 1 tower, you can simply run up the stairs at the tier 1 tower and actually jump all the way over any walls in your path and pretty much make it past the Orb Prime, things like that. And when coupled with his next ability, it just allows you to evade so much more. I would definitely recommend using the offensive stance when actually engaging in a team fight, because applying that movement speed slow is going to allow your clones to actually dish out the damage that you require of them, because it does make up a fair bit of his DPS, and obviously use evasive stance whenever you can, because it's freaking awesome and super fun. The last of his normal abilities is called Staff of Legend. Wukong extends his staff and deals ability damage. Offensive stance version, the staff pushes clones and enemy heroes by 900 units. Now this 900 units is going to push them out of attack range, but it can be used, as it says, to push your clones. You can push your clones onto the enemies that are trying to move out of the way, onto the towers. You can push enemy heroes onto towers, or just reposition them into team fights so that you can make sure you get to secure kills. When in the evasive stance, instead of dealing damage, Wukong extends his staff into the ground for a directional leap that launches him into the air. It actually will move him in a forward direction, but he will have a very vertical trajectory as well, so he won't go too far, as he will be rising more up into the air as he is going forward. But if you are actually falling to the ground and you use this just before you hit the ground, you will be granted a very, very big boost straight forward, which is why I use this with Cloudwalker. Once Cloudwalker ends and you're about to hit the ground, if you activate this while also in the evasive stance, you will gain so much more ground. It's probably one of the best evasion tools in the game when coupled with Cloudwalker. The ability damage on the offensive stance starts at 75, it ends up at 225. It has power scaling of 0.75, meaning you'll get 75 extra power for every 100, 75 extra damage for every 100 power on your build. Has a cooldown of 12 seconds, and it has a mana cost of 55, ending at 70, so it's the only one of his abilities that actually costs him any mana, which is why he doesn't really need any mana whatsoever. So considering that, it's still a very, very cheap ability, and considering it's the only one that does actually use mana, use everything you have whenever you can. Spam all of his abilities. You're not going to run out of mana, no matter what happens. You would have to have a 5-minute team fight to really worry about any mana whatsoever. From here we'll move on to his ultimate. Okay, so his ultimate is called 84,000 Hairs, which is a reference to a passage within the novel Journey to the West, where he learnt the ability to pluck out hairs and chew them up and spit them out and turn them into clones. So he has 84,000 hairs on his body, which he can do that with. It is a passive. It's his ultimate and it's a passive. But upon connecting with a basic attack, Wukong passively creates a mobile clone which attacks all targets within melee range. Clones deal a percentage of Wukong's basic attack damage per attack and will disappear after 5 seconds or 3 attacks. The damage percent starts at 20 and ends up at 40. It may not sound like much, but considering you can have 3 out at a time, they're effectively dealing 120% of your damage together, and it's just, they're extremely incredible. It makes split pushing a breeze. You can clear waves like a champ. It makes jungling once you have your ultimate extremely easy. You can absolutely delete towers with this ability, and apart from that, it sort of pushes him to being the hero that I believe that he was brought out to be. He was designed to sort of be an offlaner so that he can get this ability quicker. As you know, offlaners are sort of built around being those sort of characters that don't necessarily need CXP, but they thrive on getting XP early, which is what he gets when he's in the offlane. And I believe him to be an anti-fighter carry. People seem to think that it is his weakness that his clones don't move, and he basically needs someone to stand right in front of him to deal any damage. I actually believe it to be one of his strengths, because in most cases when you're playing a carry and a fighter gets on top of you, you're going to have a very, very bad time. But when they get on top of Wukong, they're probably going to want to reposition. It forces a lot more heroes to work on their positioning a lot better. Obviously, heroes that revolve around positioning like Morrigash, it's no big deal to them because they never really want to get in too close anyway. But it just forces other heroes to get out. It punishes tanks that are up on top of you, punishes fighters, jungle fighters that are up on top of you, and anyone else that has to get right up on you to do anything. And it is why he is an amazing hero, despite what many people will actually lead you to believe. So we'll move on to my build for him, which, as I said, is built around starting off in offlane. It is a definite carry build. It is damage, attack speed, and crit chance. So we'll move on and we'll go and have a look at that. Alright guys, here we are over on the Paragon website with my Son Goku build again, which I have not really adjusted too much, but it is definitely set up for my for just offlaning at the moment. No siphon in there for jungling. So we have the Warlord. We are going to need this a little bit later. It's going to push us over 200 attack speed. We have a health potion and a healer token to start the game off with, obviously because we are offlaners. We do actually have a Lord's Ward in here as a dummy ward. A dummy ward is a ward that you take at the very start of the game. You go and plop it down, you back, you sell it, and then you grab your starting items, which, as we said, are your health potion and your healer token. We have a wind cover blade with 3 minor kinetics. We have a whirling wand with a major cast and 2 major kinetics. We have another whirling wand with 3 minor casts. We have 2 Spear of the Rift Hunters, one which has 3 major wounds. The other one has a minor cast, a wound, and a major wound. Then we have our Sage's Ward with 3 greater casts, 2 Void Steel Daggers with 3 minor casts, and a Sword of the Altar with 3 lesser drains. I believe they're drains. I have my moments. So if we go and have a look, as I said, grab our dummy ward, we put it down, we back, we sell it, and we grab our healer token and our health potion. We try to stay in lane for as long as we can, probably until we lose our actual tower. And I try to back at least at 6 points, but a lot of the times I don't actually end up backing because I don't like leaving and pushing my tower. But whenever we actually do back, we want to go for these 2 Void Steel Daggers as our very, very first cards. Okay, from here I actually go into, and we won't go into the Sage's Ward at a certain point as to when you should grab it. You just grab it when you feel like you really need it. In offlane I tend to not grab it too early because I'm not really pushing up, but if I know that I'm going to be pushing up a lot, I will actually grab it. But after these 2, the next card we really want is the Wind Carver Blade. It's going to up our attack speed quite a bit. It's very, very handy, and then from there we grab our cheap Whirling Wand. Okay, at this stage I would probably assume that we're definitely going to be doing some rotations and such, so I would get rid of my health potion and grab my actual ward. We're sitting at a decent amount of power now and a decent amount of attack speed, but next up we need to build it into crit. So what I would recommend doing from here is actually waiting until you have 3 points to complete this get rid of a Voidsteel Dagger and get your cheap Spirit of the Rift Hunter, you are going to drop quite a bit of power on that to get to your 32% crit chance, but it is something that I do. Considering it's only 3 points that you need to max out this card by getting rid of the Voidsteel, chances are you're probably going to have more, so put the rest into your Sage's Ward. So if you're backing at 6, just put that extra power into there. From here, we really want to get our sort of altar next. So what I tend to do is, we need 9 to finish it. I back at 7, I get rid of my healer token, and I grab my Sword of Altar. Now we have okay power, we only have 32% crit chance, but we want to build more crit. So what I tend to do is I get probably say 6 points. I will then back, I will get rid of my Voidsteel Dagger, I will put 6 points onto the Spirit of the Rift Hunter, taking us to 48%, and I will actually max out my Sage's Ward to bring my power back up again. Sometimes I won't, sometimes I'll only put 3 power in and actually grab the extra crit chance, because 60 is actually a lot better. But considering this doesn't have a very powerful fully upgraded bonus, we're not worried about actually upgrading it completely so much. And this is just going to be giving us crit chance the whole way, so we're not really too bothered with that. So that's the way that I go about that, and then from here it's just a matter of actually, I tend to want to get the rest of my crit first over the power, because I feel like 102 power is not actually that bad, considering a lot of his damage actually comes from his clones as well. So I will tend to max this out, and then obviously after that we'll get our Sage's Ward. And from here it's just a matter of actually getting rid of the cheap Windcarver Blade and getting even more attack speed on the Whirling Wand, which takes us up to 192.6 attack speed at max level, 132 power, 80% crit chance, extra 60 health, passive off the Sage's Ward, and 10 lifesteal. This puts us in a situation where we're doing, according to this, 860 DPS with a 0.7 attack speed, which is quite nice. You can imagine that having Prime is just going to up this DPS quite a lot. Our Staff of Legend will still be doing 300 before mitigation. What else? Our Cloudwalker will be doing 230 before mitigation, and that's about it, because everything else is passive. So it's actually a really good build. I know a lot of people are debating as to how to build him. I feel that the 80% crit chance is really important, because it almost guarantees that you and your clones are going to crit every single time. Having the high attack speed is really important, because it allows your clones to actually get hits off. It means that you're going to be deleting structures super fast. It allows you to get into the enemy jungle if you're not already at 60 CP, and clear their jungle and get out with your evasive abilities. It's just all round, it's just a really good build. We will be I will be messing around with some other stuff in the coming weeks, an actual jungle build, and something a little bit different, maybe a bruiser build for him. But that is the build that I have for now. It's pretty much the same thing that I already posted, but I wanted to get the actual hero guide out. So there you have it. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, please smash the like button, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more Paragon content. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Love your face. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.